Did you know our hearts connect deeply wherever you and I are in the world? Hi, I'm Andrea Petrut, intuitive life and relationship coach. Here at Healing Through Oneness podcast, together we find what makes us unique and what keeps us united. We learn of past wounds and ways to heal. We release old stories and create new, empowering realities that serve us now. Join me and my guests to recognize the truth within, discover why you are precious, connect with what sets you apart, and allow the world to welcome you and resonate with your heart. We are one. Hello, we are here with a new episode. This time, my guest is the amazing TJ West. Welcome, TJ.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
TJ, you are the host of one of the podcasts that I've been on earlier this year, and yours is called My Blurred Opinion. Now, I did not see any face, anything when I looked on Podmatch. That's where we met.
Yeah.
I had no idea why you called it My Blurred Opinion until I read the description and a bit about your story. Can you tell us what's your story and why My Blurred Opinion?
Um. Well, kind of what you were saying off mic earlier. There's some really, it's kind of some sad and darkness to the whole thing, but it's how I twist it to make it funny and just have fun with it because you can't take yourself too serious because it does humble you and you wake up with it every day and some days your eyes fluctuate. It takes longer to fluctuate than others and there's really depressing days out of it, but you got to find ways to get up and laugh because you can't take yourself too serious. And if you stay in that mode, that's how people tend to either kill themselves or um, they just don't have the lives that they dreamed of. As far as how we got to this point, so I say either visually impaired or legally blind, and the only reason why I frame a little away from saying legally blind, not you, but a lot of people tend to hear the word blind because
Hmm.
there's also legally deaf and there's legally blind, and it means you're under a certain limit, like you qualify essentially. It's not really a good thing. You qualify for a certain group of people to where you can get certain benefits when it comes to disability. Now you can get it for being blind or visually impaired into certain things. But legally blind just means you qualify more as a blind person than you would a person with sight or somewhere in the middle. And so when you say legally blind, people tend to hone on it like a kid would when if like a mom and dad were arguing and mom would say, let's say, or not arguing, but when a mom would say two things, would you like cake or cookies? And since you said cookies last, they go, oh, I want cookies. And the last thing they hear of me is blind. They don't hear the legally part. They're not curious about the whole thing. And then they go, well, you don't look blind because I don't have a dog, because I don't have glasses, and all the typical stereotypical things. And it's I guess offensive, but I don't let anything really bother me too much anymore when it comes to that stuff because I'm used to people kind of being ignorant towards it. But if someone's like curious and they want to ask me questions, I'm okay with that. I'm down for a real conversation. But yeah, so I had a really bad ear infection when I was a kid, and I took amoxicillin for a couple days. I was allergic to it, and I took vancomycin for a few days. And again, ear infection went away. And as I'm looking down, I'm trying to pull up a picture so people can see what I went through. And the ear infection was actually pretty bad, but I could have lost some hearing, but it didn't. My ears got much better, but where is it? Here we go. So let me know if you can see it. This is what happened to me.
Yeah, yeah, we
Uh,
can see.
okay. So that's me all bandaged up.
Hmm.
All my skin burned off. All my hair fell out. Teeth fell out. The
But
eye stuff happened later. Go ahead.
let us get this because that's the thing that struck me. You were talking about burns, but actually it was not burned by fire, is it?
No, no.
Yeah.
Now you go to the same. you essentially go to the same destination. I went to a burn center where burn victims are, but it's because they treat you the same way with you have to get skin grafts and um, I had all what you're seeing in there is all bandaged up where I have no skin, but they put bacitracin all over your body. For people who don't know what it is, it's Neosporin, but it's much stronger, and they press that against your raw body essentially, and then they wrap you up like a mummy, which I actually have another picture where I'm even more wrapped up. Blah, blah, blah. There's probably a better picture of just
Hmm.
how like the final product is. And
So it's
yeah,
because of an infection, you said? So from an infection, this is how your body went through it?
no, so Steven Johnson syndrome is the condition I had. It's from
Okay.
a high allergic reaction to medication. So the medication was to cure the ear infection, and it did, but it did something else instead because I was taking it for such a long period of time and I was allergic to both of those medications. The Stephen John syndrome is caused from a high intake of medication. So the ear infection was a separate thing. It was just the beginning part, and the medication cured the ear infection, and then the medication caused SJS. I
Wow.
know.
So how did you get from that horrible experience? How long have you been in that experience with the bandages and everything with the burns? And how did you come to be how you are today? Because today, we are looking at you. We the ones who can see right now, and the listener will be able to watch the video on Facebook, on YouTube. You look pretty well. Like you are no longer with those burns on you. What happened? How did you make it through?
So I look pretty well. I look okay enough. I'm
I
messing with you.
will.
I'm
Well,
messing with you. I'm messing with you.
well,
Uh,
forgive me. For those who cannot see you, you still have scars, right? I mean, uh, compared to that, it's a miracle. Like, it is a miracle. First of all, I acknowledge that it's a miracle you are alive today. It's a miracle we can look at your face and we can see you. Like, we can literally see your face. We can hear you. We can hear and see a vibrant person. And it's amazing to get from that stage where you show the pictures to here. How did you make it through? What happened? What helped you?
um, well, I mean, I don't know how long that went on for. I was in the hospital for 4.5 months, but I don't know how long the bandages. Over time, that did the ointment, the bacitration did work, and I didn't have to have the bandages on. But there was periods of time where, like, I was a very determined kid, and I would try to push to go to the bathroom without ringing the bell, and I would walk on raw feet with no skin, and try to go to the bathroom, and try to sit, lay, everything hurt. It was excruciating pain. And one of the things that I find most amazing about myself, and I'm not one of these people that's very conceited, but as a child, I created this like alternate world essentially. I had all my toys, I had my music and my stuffed animals and everything, and for the most part, blocked out the pain by just living in a happy world in a hospital bed. And I was very cheerful, and I remember having a neighbor and then a roommate, I guess, and they died, but we became really good friends. We were both really sick. I made it through mine. He didn't make it through his, but we laughed. We had a good time, and we were both knocking on death's door. I'll be honest, I lost some of that over the years, and not just because of that, but just mental health stuff and
Some
abuse. So
of some of what
the
that
innocence,
mindset
yeah, the
being.
innocence and the just and again, I know that's also I was a child, but I don't know. I lost. There's a lot of stuff I've lost in my life, and I'm still me, but there's still a part of me that I wish I could get back because that part of me I wish I still had. Um, but I mean, yeah. So I spent 4.5 months. I even had to be retaught how to walk again because I was in a hospital bed for so long. So I kind of had like the shaky baby deer legs. So I had to get on exercise bikes and the medicine balls and all that. But so there was a lot of healing, just many eye surgeries when it comes to my mom taking cells from her eyes to mine or a dead person's eyes to mine. A lot of it just didn't take. A little bit would work here and there. I wore a patch a lot of times on my bad eye. But even when I got out of the hospital, I had many feeding tubes were jammed in me. I had my gallbladder was removed. I just had a lot of internal damage. And then once life really started hitting me and my eyes started to They were super sensitive to the light. I was just afraid of everything. I don't have a hat anywhere near me, but I used to wear a hat where it would be like so far over. Now, this is my good eye, this is my bad eye. But I would wear
For
it so
people who cannot see you, so you're showing that the good eye is the right eye.
right, right.
Okay.
And so
Mm-hmm.
I would wear my hat over my left eye to protect, because my left eye was more sensitive, even though it only can see colors, emotions. It was more sensitive than the right. But when you pull your hat so far over, now you're blocking the vision of your good eye. So I'd walk into poles and all that, and that's kind of what also led up to a lot of the bullying in school, people spitting on me, throwing stuff at me, and stuff like that. So there's a um, it was a long healing process for months and months, even years, and then my eyes kind of just settled, and over time they are what they are now. But um, yeah, but as far as like how I got out, it was just a lot of healing and recovering, and then once I got out of the hospital, it was just like trying to start a new life as this, and it there was a lot of really sad nights. I mean, there was times where I'm open to everything now, but I never used to want to talk, but I used to pee myself all the time because I was afraid to get out of bed. Also because I was bullied a lot in school, or even by a certain teacher. She wouldn't let me go to the bathroom. She made me sit in it. So that was like a part of it. And so
Wow.
I went through a lot of what you would call extremes,
Yeah.
um, where it's like, or what I would say the worst case scenarios. I was also molested in school. Like, there's just a lot of bad things that happened to me. Like, I was just a kid that was already on edge from trauma. And I think if it was just the eye stuff, I really think I would have been okay. But because so many adults, because your mom, and I hate saying this because it sounds like I'm blaming her, but my mom was always like, listen to the adults, that what they say goes. But you really find that to be horseshit. And I don't know if I'm not supposed to curse, but sorry. But it's you find it to be real crap, because everybody who ever screwed me over, for the most part, I mean, there was kids that threw stuff at me, whatever, but they were taught by their parents what to do and not to do, and yeah, and so I went through a lot of abuse that really took me down to some really dark places that led when I was an adult, because a lot of it just, I started to realize what all that stuff meant and what it all was, and then you realize what loneliness was, and depression, um and you start to be shameful of your disability and all these things. And um but yeah, as far as to what your question was, like, it was just a lot of healing. And um I got lucky. There's a lot of people that didn't make it through my condition. They died, and I almost did too. I actually went for a couple seconds and came back, and they even told my mom to prepare basically a funeral, but I somehow pushed through, somehow. But yeah.
Wow. We can take a deep breath in now, because that's a lot. I've never heard anybody sharing so much trauma. I mean, like you are sharing, but living through so much trauma. Um, how many years has been since the moment you had that the syndrome started, and then until now? How many years you've been through this, and what helped you be who you are today, this person who can speak about your experience, this person who has some sense of humor, although I know you have your own challenges still.
Well, I was 4, so I'm 33, so it was 29 years ago that the SJS happened. Um, but yeah, it's kind of hard to, let me see, how do I say it? Because honestly, like the podcast came a year and a half ago, and a couple years. It's probably in the last 7 to 8 years where I really started to find my voice, because I started to work for a place that also hired other people with visual impairment and blindness, and I realized I was already really a mess as a person. I was kind of just a plane headed for a disaster. I was already super sad. I was really just traumatically just damaged inside, and feeling super neglected. I've said this multiple times to other people that at least a good 5 years I was only alive because I didn't want to hurt my grandmother and my mother. That was it. Like, if I really had a real, and I was also a soft person, like I didn't have it in me to do it, even though I did it. There was an attempt to try to shoot myself, but the gun had a lock on it. So there was one way I wanted out, but I was at such a bad place for so long that like I literally was just living for them. I wasn't living for me anymore. I was just on autopilot.
Although you didn't have the strength to stay alive on your own, but there were circumstances and people around you that kept you alive just because of their existence. Can we say that there's something to be grateful for, like for them, because that's why you are alive today, helping other people. This is I'm taking the positive
No, no,
side.
no, no. You're doing the right thing. No, I'm not. I swear, I'm not trying to make your show a sad. You're just asking me.
No, no,
I'm
no.
in a better place now, but yes, that was a great thing, and because I tell people, I mean, I'm a mental health advocate, so I tell people whatever it is that you need to hold on to is a great thing. Even I always say, like, even if it's like season, Stranger Things is next season is coming out. Like, if you have to hold on to, in a month when that comes out, at least that's a month that buys you time. And then maybe another season will come out in a year, or maybe you'll find another show, or you'll find an album or something that hits you, something that you were meant to see or hear, and that brings like it gives you more hope to last a little longer. And maybe as that time passes, maybe you start to get stronger, and your skin gets thicker, and you start to just kind of accept yourself a little more. Even if you don't completely entirely love and accept yourself, you start to find something to live for. So no, absolutely, that I'm just telling you how it came in my life at that
Yeah,
time. But
no, it's great. It's great. I know you and I talked before this episode that uh and like you mentioned a bit today, we're speaking the truth about our parents because it was our reality in the moment, but we love our parents. And I know.
the reason why you and I related a lot was because of how you were for your child and how I saw what she did for me. But I genuinely got to know you, and I got a lot of love and affection for you anyway. But just what you sacrificed. Yeah, you're a mom, but you don't have to. There's plenty of bad moms in the world, but you made all the sacrifice that you needed to do, above and beyond, just to make sure your child gets what it needs to get to live and have a resemblance of a decent life. So that was kind of the parallel in our connection that we initially started on.
Yeah, and see, when our children, or we as children, go through trauma, and our parents, for whatever reason, we're not judging here, we're just saying for whatever reason, they cannot be the support we really need because they're doing their best, and that's the best they can do. But for us, it may not be enough, and we are the ones who need who hopefully we're gonna make it, and we go through the experiences somehow, uh, finding that what I call a pillar in us, some support within us, until somebody else from the outside comes and helps us. Did you have anybody helping you? Like, did you find, after all these bullies and the trauma and everything, was there anybody else beside you and your mother who has helped you somehow, who has been there for you, even if like an audiobook or something? Was there something that helped you
Oh,
outside you?
now you mean during that time, like the really bad times?
Yeah, during the bad times, and if not after, like what was a moment where somebody really meant something for you?
Well, this was something I kind of discovered very recently, and I've talked about this. I'm very open about it. But when I was in my worst of days, just the mental health stuff. This was many years later, but the mental health stuff, I was in such a bad place. And I wanted to, like, if I saw a woman that was attractive, that I never thought she would ever want anything to do with me because I'm ugly and I busted eyes and all these things I went through, I would go, I want to rape her. Now I would never do that, but it was the thought that was there. And everyone who goes through mental health to its really darkest places, they go there. But besides suicide, this is how school shooters happen. This is how a lot of just tragedies end up happening, is because someone goes through so much that they're just ready to explode. Maybe I saw an old lady and I wanted to hit her. Now the reason why I went to this place is because the one thing I did not want to hurt was animals. And I had a pet cat at the time, and I have one now, but I would say the cat I have now is way more loving and affectionate. But this cat I had at the time, Diva, I don't think I'll ever love anything like I loved her. Could she have been a better cat? Yeah, I guess. But she got me through some of the worst of times. I could cry into her fur, and she was just there when I was just at my worst. And it seemed like she knew it. And so I had that. I had video games. I had Like, but people, no, honestly, I still have a very distrust for people because when I get to know you or I pick up on your vibes, like I immediately knew when I met you, like you were just a good person beyond just the story, but like you just like have a really good attitude and just like a really chill way of communicating. And I'm not just saying that because you're all, I'd tell you this off here,
I know, I know.
but
I
but
know you're always like this. Yeah.
right, but but no, I didn't have any friends for a long time. When I finally had some friends, it's even after high school, they all kind of disappeared. So I think the worst times, like physically the worst times, were like when I got sick from, like, I would say, like from 4 to, like, I don't know, 8 or 9. And then a lot of time passed where it's just kind of life was just what it was. It was just nothing was bad, nothing was great. I mean, again, of course, I still had the eye problems and stuff. And then high school happened. There was some anxiety that I started to realize what mental health was. But I think once college hit, which I did for a year, and once I just really started to kind of like figure out my body and just learn who I was as a person, the real world hit me, and mental health just took me down just a horrible path of destruction. And um, but even during that time, I didn't have anything. Like I really, really didn't. And the only reason why I started to take medication and accept therapy is because the thoughts that I previously said, among others, were so bad that I knew that I was so anti what I was, like everything that I stood for. Um, I was like thinking that I wanted to hurt people. I wanted to do these horrible things, and it's like, man, this is horrifying. Like I was petrified of myself, and I needed to do something because I was spinning out of control. But no, honestly, I did just, and I'm not. It's not to give myself any credit or anything. I did all this on my own, just about. The stuff with the health stuff, that was my mom was and my grandma to some degree as well. That was that. But the older I got, now a lot of it was just me. But again, some of it was me taking it. I only wanted to be alone because I'll tell this to any person, and I've shouted this out so many times. You could be in a sporting event with 20, 30, 50,000 people, and you could still feel alone. And if you
Yeah,
feel
I
like
agree.
yeah, you feel like no one understands you, you feel like the world doesn't understand, like, won't accept you, and you're invisible, and all these things. Um, yeah, like you just, I always called myself a lonely loner. Not that I wanted to be alone, but I always felt like that's the only where I fit in, was being by myself, because I was never the person that anyone ever really gave any attention or love to. Um, yeah, and there's only so much your mom can do for you, because at some point you grow into a man or a young adult, and you start to just be like, yeah, how can I impress girls if my mom was always holding my hand? Um, yeah, so
Yeah. Um, while I was listening to you, I was thinking that you speak about yourself as the most, a lonely loner. But you're actually, it's what people don't know, and I will share this. You actually sent me audio messages since we met for your podcast, and you're asking me how I feel. And then some time goes by, and again, so you care. You care about others because you know how it's like, and you you have such a big heart, and your podcast brings a lot of people. I wouldn't say like you because people who come there are different than you, but like you in the sense of, heart centered, and people who have had a hard life or have some challenges in their life, and they are unique. They are not your usual people that you would hear on podcast or see on TV or read about in books. You bring awareness through your podcast about people, situations, challenges, disabilities, or anything. Can you tell us more about how did you? You're talking about people that you don't trust them, right? But having a podcast as a host, I know it means connecting, it means talking, communicating. It means having trust, trusting that the person is going to come to your meeting, trusting that the person is going to say something meaningful. Will have, like, there's a lot of trust in there. So for me, I see it as a huge step for you towards your healing, towards your growth, towards empowerment. Why did you do this podcast, and when did you start doing it, and what does it mean to you? What's your mission with it, and if it helped you in which way? Like, what does it mean to you?
It was like 8 questions, but I'll try to answer them all.
Oh, it's okay. Let's take one
No,
by
no,
one.
no, no.
Why this podcast?
Well, I'll say, well, one of them you said, when did I start? That was about a year and a half ago. And to get to kind of all of it, it was, again, not to constantly scream about mental health, but my mental health told me, even up to a year and a half ago, even till now, what's the point? No one will listen to you. You suck. Like, you're useless, and no one's gonna care. And when I first started, 10 people listened. I don't know how many hundreds of people, a few hundred people listen now, and it's nothing crazy, but it's way more impressive and way better than it was. And my original goal was just to get myself out there, just to tell my story, and hopefully somebody will care, and maybe something will come of it. Maybe I can get out of the rut I'm in, and maybe change jobs, and just, who knows, you never know what can happen. And then my next part of it was, I wanted to talk about my mental health. I wanted to talk about my condition, everything, and all that. I had about 10 to 12 ideas. My one friend Lori, she died of heart failure, but she survived cancer. She died when she was about 22, and I promised her that I would try to live the best life I could for her and I, because she never got to. So I carried that burden as well, and I wanted to tell her story, which is an emotional one for me. And then I kind of interviewed a couple of my friends, and they had visually impaired or blind, and they're awesome. But when I started to do research on the disability community, and started to figure out, like, what other shows or blogs or YouTube channels, or whatever type of similar entertainment was doing, they were doing kind of what I was doing, but I didn't know I was doing it, was sticking to what I know, which was my condition, or my body part, I should say, which is, in my case, eyes. And I didn't like that, because I felt like, when I found out there's 1.6 or 1.8 billion of us, and we're like the last community that gets really any help or any understanding or any care for. We're still treated, we're better than we were treated. We're not put in camps, and we're not killed, and well, at least in this country. um, and then I saw that documentary Crip Camp, that kind of changed my outlook on just all these people, how what they sacrificed and fought for us. And I really just looked at the the outlet of what the disability community is as a whole at that point in time, and I said, like, it's kind of sad, because we don't support each other, and we don't look out for each other, and we don't really try to learn from each other. Yes, we have a lot of similarities, but we also have a lot of differences, and that's okay too. But we should come together certain parts of the year to really, stick up for each other, and show the world what we're made of, because the strongest people I've ever met in this world are people with disabilities, and I'll bet everything I own on that. um, and Yeah, so I really wanted to just share any condition I could possibly find, or that I even knew. I found so many I didn't even hear of before I did this. And my initial dip in the toe in the water was my cousin. Nano has a cousin, or a cousin. He has a son with autism. So I interviewed my cousin, who his father, and it went really well. And that was like, okay, that's autism. Almost like check. Even though I've done other stuff on autism as well, but it was like I wanted to at least do one. And then, all of a sudden now I'm me and a deaf girl are talking on the phone, which is incredible, because you would think a blind guy and a deaf guy talking to each other sounds ridiculous. But the fact there's so many programs that just, there's like a third party that just can filter it out and tell her what I'm saying. And it just was great. And then, I'm covering things like, like dwarfism, and obviously cancer, and whatever, spina bifida, all these crazy chronic illnesses and all that. And then in the last probably 7 6 7 months, or the second, what we call second season, I guess, even though it's just another year, um, is kind of how I got to you. Is I really wanted to not strictly focus on it, but I wanted to go after, like, tackling the disability community, or what we go through, from a different angle, from the perspective of the people that are most affected by us, and the people that do so much and sacrifice so much for us. So obviously mothers, caregivers, teachers, people that just impacted us. Like you asked me if there was anybody important through my journey. There was a couple, but it just you were talking about the very beginning, so there was none. But I had a teacher who, well, I had her on the podcast, but she did so much for me. She got me into a good high school when I didn't have the grades. She just looked out for me. She got me all the things that I needed to see better for, whether it's reading notes or whatever, taking tests. She got me extra time for this and that. And, um, I owe her a good chunk of my success in high school because of her and another woman, but especially because of her, because if it wasn't for her, I'd have never got into that school. Um, so yeah, the podcast, I just wanted to spread awareness on what people with disabilities go. But through that, we started talking about domestic violence and addiction and homelessness, things that are very similar and kind of intersect with each other because a lot of people with disabilities have drug issues or do drugs, have done drugs at some point in time. Not me. I'm a very clean person, but that's just because I was a very soft kid and I was afraid of everything. But I lived in a city where it was polluted. It was everywhere. I know plenty of people that have done it. I've never been homeless, but homeless people are just like the disability community. They're very discriminated against. People think they're all dirty, they're all lazy, and they're not worth a damn. But the reality of it is that we shouldn't have homeless people in any country. I know you live in a different country than me, but your country is not far off from the same as mine. And there's no reason why we should have homeless people, especially not to the degree that we do. Domestic violence, all these things. They're all together, and they're to me they're just the issues of people who go through struggles. And I never wanted to have. I'll cut this off, but I never wanted to have people come on and go, "Oh, I have a disability. Life sucks," because that's not going to inspire anybody. If anything, that's going to drag someone who's already feeling lonely. The younger TJ. Like I look at it from that perspective. Someone who's just alone, feels like they have nobody. There's no one like them in the world, and no one's going to care. And I don't know everybody out there. I don't know what everyone's going through, and I'm not going to pretend like I do, but I want to try to find somebody that will help them. I have a cousin who has MS, and I just interviewed somebody with MS, multiple sclerosis. And I said, look, I can only help you from my point of view as a person with a disability, but she actually has your condition. Listen to her. She'll get you out of your, shameful, my life is over, feelings towards life. Um, and so, yeah, I'm just trying to, I don't know, I'm just trying to like show how much people, like how awesome people can be when so much is thrown at them and they're still standing, and how much they overcome. And like just the inner strength to me is like the most beautiful thing. Not to be like super cheesy, but inner strength is something like I sometimes I can come out of my own body and I can just go, damn, like how are you like still standing? Like I don't get it. And I don't even, like I said, I don't know. I really don't know. I should be dead for many reasons. I should be dead, but I'm not. And I'm not honing on it. I'm proud that I'm still here, but I really don't know how I'm still here because some of it's just like an inner thing that just keeps me moving. So yeah, I don't know if I answered all 80 of your questions, but I answered some of them.
Well, I will ask what you didn't answer, but before knowing more, I acknowledge and I notice that you're interviewing people like you. You're interviewing warriors. You are interviewing challengers. You are interviewing not just survivors, but people who found their way to make it through no matter what. And you are interviewing people who have a diagnosis or a label, whether we call them homeless or people with disabilities or spina bifida, whatever. These are labels. This is not who they are. And you started talking about labels and then you ended with people, which I love about you is you see the person, the human, not the diagnosis, not what there's on paper that they have or that some people call them. um and it is amazing. So now, because you hear those stories, you heard me and many others who gone through uh horrible stuff, or horrible pain or things like that, how do their stories or our stories help you? Because I know as a host, no matter the reason why we start a podcast, it's always helping us. This is my childhood today. Surely it has an impact on you. I know, like I am now impacted by your story, and I need to breathe a little, uh because it's been
Sorry
hard
about
when
that.
I it's okay. I mean, like, the listeners are gonna feel the same, and it's okay. Like, life is tough, and for some is it is what it is. But there is a good impact in hearing those stories and having conversations with your guests. What's that impact for you? How did it help you?
Right. Before I get to that, I just wanted to say one thing to comment on what you said as far as how I look at people. Look, I have my moments. Like there's certain people in my family that are racist. I don't tolerate it. I hate that. But every so often, sometimes evilness will kind of get deep seated into your thoughts, even if you're not manifesting it yourself. It's almost like you have Tourette's, but you don't say it. And I've had people with Tourette's on, and I find them very fascinating, and they're very uh, they're very interesting people, and you
I
don't
heard that. I listened to that show, and I
that
was
guy, yeah.
it's amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
But anyway, so like, I may have a thought where I'll see somebody who's a different color or something, but somebody doing something just stupid just for a person. And then maybe I'll get that thought like, oh God, or maybe I'll say the wrong word for a person or something. And then but the difference is between me and the average person, or the people that will not, they don't have a filter, and they don't have a way to really recognizing struggles, and have an empathy. I can check myself and go, really, TJ, like, you're gonna feel this way? Like, how many of your friends are black? How many of your friends are, gay? Or how many of your friends have no arms, or whatever the hell it is? And I could check myself and realize, like, it just was a stupid thought. Like, evilness is in all of us, and sometimes we just have stupid thoughts. And we live in this cancel culture world where you can't have any thoughts, that even no matter where it comes from. And it comes, you get abused your whole life, and I don't even just me, like, you go through a lot of abuse. Sometimes you want to take it out on someone else, fair or unfair. That's really what happens. And sometimes if you're around enough people, or it's in your DNA, you may have feelings, but you're able to check it because you have real experience, and you have love, and you have different feelings, and you break the chain of all those people that instilled these feelings in you. But anyway, so to what you asked, yeah, it's better than anything therapy's ever done for me. Now, therapy helped for a good while. It helped me to, like, kind of be a little more open. But um, there's a guy who I had on. I could use many examples, but I use this guy specifically because he had a moment of clarity through another person with a disability. His name's Phil. He's from the UK. He's paralyzed from the shoulders down. He has his own family. He owns his own business. He's an entrepreneur. He does so many great things. He runs a great Facebook organization. I haven't heard from him in a little while, so I really hope he's all right. But he was 19. He just got out of the army. He was kind of he was very rebellious. He was kind of just trying to, like, push the limits to what a 19-year-old could do. He's driving a motorcycle. He ends up going off of a cliff, and landing onto train tracks, and he paralyzed himself from the shoulders down. He's laying in bed, and he's hating himself, and he's realizing he just ruined his life. And he ends up stumbling into this therapy room, um, and he bumps into a guy who's paralyzed from the jaw down. And the guy is cracking jokes, and the guy is like, lighten up, like, hey, you can use your arms, I can't. Like, what's wrong with you? And they end up becoming great friends, and it just changed his life forever. That doesn't mean he doesn't have depression. It doesn't mean he still doesn't feel sorry for himself, or he doesn't have anger towards what he did. But he now has a functional life, to where most people with no function to the lower half or even the middle half of their body, just their shoulders on down or arms on down, they would want to give up. And he kept going. And so I use him as an example to say, every person that I've interviewed, it makes me grateful for the fact that I have feet, that I have access, my function in my feet. I have, my back works, and I can think, even though I have brain fog that I'm trying to work on. But I'm not totally blind. Same thing. I have a really good friend who's blind. We work together, and it's as if you wouldn't even think we had vision problems, because it was like effortless, because we use our ears and how to not bump into each other, and like, it does something for me. I just interviewed a guy, probably one of the more successful guests that I've had, as far as he's a former NFL player, and he has a learning disability. And he just, before he did the interview, he was like, I read in his bio that he had a teacher that said he'll never be able to graduate college, and he'll never be able to do any speakings because he's dumb. And he was like, well, before we do this interview, I got to go for 20 minutes. I got to I got to go perform and give a speech. And it's like just the little things. It's like the dude just he does everything that he's told he's not going to do, and that like encompasses everything that people with disabilities or people that are struggling are. And yeah, so it's very, I know it's long-winded, but it's very therapeutic for me because I'm around these people that, yeah, you could make a case of whose story's worse and all of that stuff, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like I'm very grateful. I'm not trying to look at their story to go like, at least I don't have this. I just look at it like, just be grateful for the things you do have. Like I have a little money in my account. I'm not poor. There's plenty of people struggling financially, and I feel terrible for them. I can't save everybody, but it's just there's just so many things I'm very grateful for that I was not grateful for, and I took stuff for granted, like with my back. I do a lot of heavy lifting at work. Now I start to bend my knees a little more to lift because before I was just very willy nilly with my back, and I would just lift heavy stuff at really awkward positions. Because I have friends who now have spina bifida who are in wheelchairs or amputees and all that, and I just yeah, if you don't learn from these people, then you're not doing the right. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you're not listening, and you just I guess you just don't have like real empathy.
I love all the stories you shared. You gave us a lot of advice, and I know when you said that you're grateful for what you have, that you were not comparing in terms of, "Ooh, thank God I don't have that," or whatever. um and it's in those things, in that gratitude, that is, I would say, it's the source of motivation, the source of blessings, if we believe in blessings, and it's what can drive us through. Because when we start recognizing what we have, we get out of our own way, we get out of our own minds, and we get unstuck of that whining and whatever we're doing there about our lives, when we realize that we're actually having a lot. you know and what I also learned from you, what I personally learned from you, is to appreciate what I cannot understand. You are the one who taught me what blind and legally blind people would need, for instance, for my podcast. So I've been more aware. You have helped me raise my awareness, because I know you. I'm mindful, and I love that I can be mindful. And the way I speak to you is in a way that I feel it's okay. And I'm mindful with other people too. I have only few friends with disabilities, but I was never aware to the level I am today, thanks to you.
Oh,
So
I appreciate it.
I really want to thank you for inviting me to your podcast and for sharing in private your story and other thoughts, because, and in a way, you woke me up. Because when you're like me, a person who can see, hear, sense, feel, smell, like I have it all, in terms of physicality, let's say, there are things I take for granted. I took for granted, you know, what I have by my eyesight, my hearing, and all of that. But the more I live with people, the more I encounter people who are different than me and who don't have what I have, I'm not taking things for granted as I used to. So it's been a great life lesson for me.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, you said something earlier about me like checking on you. It's like that's just it goes back to when I've been in my worst places. We all just want someone to just text us. It doesn't even matter who. It could be somebody you don't even like. If somebody just says, "Hey, how you doing?" Um, and because I know you got a lot of things to take care of, and everybody's lives gets harder at some point, and you're not the only person I do that for. And I'm not saying that to make myself sound better, but everybody I've had on the show, I'd say about 80% of them, I try to check on them. It's not easy. Um, and every so often someone's just like, man, I'm not doing well. And thank you. And it means a lot because I still don't really necessarily have that all the time. Um, because I mean, it's just the way time, kind of adds up, and it just, when you're feeling bad, that just everyone else is busy. It's just how it works out. But when you go with like life experience, it just feels like, oh, deja vu again. But no, it's just I'm glad you got to learn something from me, and it's like I said, I try to be as positive I can because I'm not always positive. There's times I'm down. Um, I know you said you wanted to mention something about that video I did. I don't know if you still want to or not. I don't.
Oh, you did. And the video we're talking about is the one where you were on Instagram and you put a message like, he's not blind or something like that. And then you put your sunglasses on. And then the message was, yeah, he is blind. And it's about stereotypes. And you mentioned in the beginning about stereotypes. And I think I love that video because, it was funny, but it has so much wisdom. It's like a wake up call. Like, we have stereotypes, and we should wake up out. We should get out of that, because it's not the reality. It's We're making people, and I'm not talking just about blind people. In general, we are making somebody else fit into our labels, just so that we consider they have something. There's something about them, like, even calling somebody autistic. We need to call somebody autistic to acknowledge that they need help. Like, just this is one perspective. I've seen that it's been happening with children. I've seen it in Romania. I see it everywhere. Like, we need to put a label, and we need them to fit into some things. Otherwise, they will not receive the money, they will not receive support. Uh, and it's sad, because you mentioned in the beginning there are people, or maybe you didn't mention it this way, but I witnessed where there are people who would really need financial support from the government, but they will not receive it because they are not in the details. They do not conform with all the details in the file and in the legal act or whatever that is. So it's put some people aside just because they don't fit. Like, are you kidding me? You gotta fit a disability, description. You gotta fit into something. Otherwise, you're like, this is so awkward. It's the world is turned upside down.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing that's missing in the world today, or one of the biggest things, is there's many things, empathy and so on, but is that people just don't know how to put themselves in other people's shoes and don't even want to try. Like you're a person that may not know everything, and you may not, you may have some ignorance to what certain thing people go through because you just don't have the experience, and that's okay. But you have a good heart, and you want to know, and maybe you don't have the time to know all this stuff. You don't know how to bring everyone into your world and how to accommodate them, but you're coming to the table with kindness and an open mind. And that's not what most people do, because most people go, well, I'm not black, or I don't have a disability, I'm not this. And sometimes they're so afraid of even just learning a little about that culture or about whatever it is, because it takes a little time. And so, especially with like one of the big things I'm passionate about is 75% of people with disabilities are unemployed. And it's like 75% of any community unemployed here in America would be outrageous. But because we are these like broken people, and we're only good for washing dishes or grocery bagging and all these things, we're held to these standards because people look at us, just for the visually impaired part of it, they look at us through purified, really good eyesight, what we call sighted people. And they look at what we can't do. Like, I knew we had a boss who tried to do a very tough physical job, and they put on a blindfold and they tried to do it and they couldn't do it. So they said, well, blind people can't do this job. And it's because, but you have the realization of being able to take that blindfold off and go, ah, that guy who's totally blind cannot do that. Now I can see some, but still, that's still offensive to me. And you're telling me, you're giving me limitations based on how you feel about it, how you perceive, and how weak you are mentally because you don't know how to do it, or you don't think you can do it. Whereas I know what my limitations. I can't drive, I can't fly a plane, but I'm sure as hell going to try everything else. And so, like with someone like you, I think sometimes you worry too much. I think I told you that the one time. You worry a little too much about trying to be so accommodating for other people with disabilities. And at the end of the day, all you have to do is just have an open mind and just care a little. And that's all that really matters. Where the average person, or what it seems to be, is most people just are very self-absorbed by themselves. And it's like you have to be on a side. You have to be mask or anti-mask. You have to be black or white. You have to be Pepsi or Coke. Like you can't be, Democrat or Republican and all this nonsense. You can't just have a little bit of both, or you can't have different feelings. You can't have a different opinion, a different mindset on certain things. You have to fall in line like everyone else does. And um, I was telling a lady, our HR lady, I'm like, look, you're setting rules for people, like people with disabilities. You're setting rules for people, politically correct rules for us, and we don't live a politically correct world. People are allowed to say things about us, and they're allowed to speak this like innuendo, subliminal stuff that we can't prove. But you can do whatever you want, but we don't live that lifestyle. The lifestyle, the world is not, um, it's not a politically correct world for us. We go out and we're discriminated against every day. And so you can't set rules to make our lives already hard because it's already hard enough. Um, yeah, sorry, I'm ranting, but
You
yeah,
can't set rules to make our lives hard because it's already hard. This is what you said.
yeah, our lives are already hard. So the more restraints that you put on, because one of the things that we have trouble with as people with disabilities is accepting our successes. Like for me, I have my own place. I work. So I broke the mold. I broke the statistic. But it's hard for me to say to a person who's able-bodied or sighted or whatever term you want to use to say, hey, I work. Hey, I have a job, or I have my own place. Hey, I can dress myself. Hey, I can do these things. It's like, yeah, well, good for you. So does my daughter. So does my uncle. So does everyone else in my family. It's like, yeah, but you didn't have the barriers. You didn't have to do all this and have a vision problem and have whatever problem. And you didn't have to deal with discrimination. You didn't have to deal with people telling you can't do things and they don't know anything about you or what you can and can't do. Um, and so, but yeah, we have a real trouble with that. And I've had this conversation with many people with disabilities of just accepting our successes, because our successes sometimes are normal things for the average person.
Before we end this conversation, what is a message you have for our friend, the listener, and for those watching this?
Let's see. Some of it is a lot of just what I've said over this episode is just, staying strong. People will tell you you're going to get a lot of, again, I don't know what your problem is out there. Maybe it's just like mine. Maybe it's not even a disability. Maybe it's just mental health, or which I also think is a disability, but maybe it's you're struggling financially, you're struggling with it, but find something to keep you going, because it's really hard, man. Life can be really shitty. You can struggle and struggle, and it when they say it rains, it pours, it does. And I've been through so much in my life, and sometimes I feel like when good things happen, I start looking over my shoulder like, when's the next bad thing coming? Um, and I don't want to feel that way, because it's hard to appreciate the journey. It's hard to appreciate everything you've been through. And if you're a person that just has been through a lot, even if maybe you're just new to being through something, again, find things. It doesn't have to be an animal. It doesn't have to be a show. It doesn't have to be something big and elaborate, like a brand new job, or money, or whatever, a lover. Just find something to just hold on to get you through the next day or the next hour. um, and find ways to just have experiences. Don't be ignorant and dumb to the world. Learn from other people, because there are so many people going through so many different things, just from different angles and different avenues, and just different crevices of the world. um, just also don't use whatever you can to motivate yourself, because if stuff I stopped watching the news, because the news is depressing. The news is just a lot, and it just comes from filtered angles that they already like. It's just to sell magazines and articles and all. They don't care about you. They just don't. And I'm not talking about specific. I'm talking about all of them for the most part. And find stuff that just suits you as a person. Find things that just hit you. um, because like I said, the world can be very, very lonely, and when a lot of times when we're at our worst, it, it can't feel any worse. But there's a lot of beautiful things come from really dark places if you're fortunate enough to be able to pull yourself out of it. And I'll end on this. Just the goal for me is how I look at it is the quicksand theory is the goal is to always take um, positive steps forward and at least one or two steps backward. But you start off two steps backwards, or one step forward, two step backward. But if you keep taking two and one, you're always moving. You're going to have setbacks. You're going to fail. You're going to have embarrassing moments. You're going to have times where you're going to question who you are, your reality, and everything you achieved, no matter how successful it gets. I've wanted to quit the podcast twice. And someone reached out to me and said, "Hey, you got me through the day." And I was like, Jesus, all right, I don't even know who you are. Somebody made me a website. I didn't do that. I don't even know who they are. They don't even want to take credit for it. And meeting amazing people like Andrea, like it wouldn't have happened if I didn't get off my ass and I didn't push myself. And I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for, my inner strength and the little things that I held on to, but people who just, the few people that did, give me a hug when I needed a hug, even if it wasn't a literal hug, but just a metaphorical or emotional hug of just, "Hey man, I'm here for you. Hey, here's a, whatever, something, just something. I'll take you out to dinner, or I'll take you golfing, even if you don't like golf. It's just something to get me out of the house." So like I said, if anybody's just struggling, man, just please find something to make you happy. Find someone to talk to. I'm not going to say there's no shame and don't be embarrassed about it, because we all are embarrassed about something, but find someone to talk to, because it's, loneliness will kill you, literally. Just, find something to hold on to. As far as social media, you can find me if you just type in Timothy J. West. If you want to type in Williamsport, that's what the city I'm in. I don't care. People can stalk me if they want, but yeah, that's where I'm at on Facebook. But the only reason why I'm pulling out my phone is because I changed the name of my Instagram and I wanted to say it right, because one little letter off and you're like, because I had it named after the podcast, but the reason why I changed it, because it wasn't strictly podcast based stuff. I talk about other things, like I do certain lives about other stuff, but it's called TJ's Safe Space for All. It's kind of cheesy, but it really is kind of what it is. I do a lot of little lives and just talk to, about certain subject matter that bugs me, or, like I did one about DMX, the rapper who died, and he died drug overdose. And I just went on a live about how we shouldn't focus just on celebrities. We shouldn't focus on issues when it affects celebrities. We should focus on the major issue that addiction is sky high and people are dying at a high rate. Not that the celebrity himself isn't important, and not that I'm not a fan, because I am, but the bigger issue is the drug crisis that's going on in the world, not just one individual. And then as far as my podcast goes, it's My Blurred Opinion. It's on Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio. It's kind of on all of them. And yeah.
Here, TJ.
Of course.
If what you heard touched you or helped you, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite place for tuning in. Pay it forward by sharing it with others. I'll be here for you with the next episode. I'm Andrea Petrut, your Healing Through Oneness show host. Remember, we are connected. We are one.